Dr. Sarah Mitchell had seen many strange things during her 15 years as a veterinarian, but nothing could have prepared her for what happened on that rainy Tuesday morning in October. The Valley Animal Clinic was unusually quiet, with only the soft hum of the air conditioning and the occasional chirp from the birds in the waiting room breaking the silence. Sarah was reviewing patient files when she heard scratching at the front door. At first she thought it might be the wind pushing debris against the glass, but the sound was too rhythmic, too purposeful. She looked up from her desk and walked toward the reception area, expecting to see a client struggling with the heavy door. Instead, she found herself staring at the most unusual sight of her career. A tiny golden retriever puppy, no more than 8 weeks old, was dragging something across the wet pavement outside. The little dog was barely visible through the rain-streaked glass, but Sarah could see it was struggling with whatever it was pulling. The puppy was soaked to the bone, its golden fur darkened and matted against its small frame. Despite its size, the little creature showed remarkable determination as it pulled what appeared to be a large canvas bag toward the clinic entrance. The bag was almost as big as the puppy itself, and Sarah watched in amazement as the tiny animal used every ounce of its strength to move it forward. Sarah's assistant, Maria, had been organizing supplies in the back room when she heard the commotion. She joined Sarah at the window, and both women watched in stunned silence as the puppy continued its struggle. The rain was coming down harder now, and the little dog was clearly exhausted, but it refused to give up. "Should we help?" Maria whispered, as if speaking too loudly might frighten the determined little visitor away. Sarah was already moving toward the door. As a veterinarian, her instinct was always to help animals in distress, and this tiny puppy was clearly in need of assistance. She opened the heavy glass door and stepped into the rain, immediately feeling the cold drops soak through her white coat. The puppy looked up at her with the most expressive brown eyes Sarah had ever seen. There was something almost human in that gaze, the intelligence and urgency that made Sarah's heart skip a beat. The little dog didn't run away as she approached. Instead, it seemed to be asking for help, its tiny tail giving the faintest wag despite its obvious exhaustion. "What do you have there, little one?" Sarah asked softly, crouching down to get a better look at the mysterious bag. The puppy stepped back slightly, but not in fear. It was as if the little animal was giving Sarah permission to examine what it had brought. The bag was old and weathered, made of thick canvas that had seen better days. It was secured at the top with a drawstring, and Sarah could see that whatever was inside was creating an unusual bulge in the fabric. Maria had grabbed an umbrella and joined them outside. "Dr. Mitchell, we should get you both inside before you catch pneumonia," she said, though her voice was filled with the same curiosity that Sarah felt. Together, they helped the exhausted puppy and its mysterious cargo into the warmth of the clinic. The little dog immediately shook itself, sending water droplets flying across the clean floor. But Sarah didn't care about the mess. She was more concerned about the puppy's condition and increasingly curious about what it had worked so hard to bring to them. The puppy settled on a soft towel that Maria provided, but its eyes never left the canvas bag. It was clear that whatever was inside was important to the little animal. Sarah had seen dogs bring their owners everything from sticks to dead birds, but she had never seen such determination and purpose in such a young puppy. As Sarah gently examined the tired little visitor, she noticed that despite being wet and exhausted, the puppy appeared to be in good health. Its eyes were bright and alert, its nose was wet and cool, and there were no obvious signs of injury or illness. This made the situation even more puzzling. Where had this puppy come from, and why had it brought this particular bag to a veterinary clinic? The morning sun was just beginning to break through the storm clouds outside, casting strange shadows across the examination room floor. Sarah looked at the mysterious bag again, noting how carefully the puppy had positioned itself between her and its precious cargo. Whatever was inside, the little dog clearly considered itself the guardian of something very important. Sarah decided to take things slowly. The puppy had been through enough stress for one morning, and she didn't want to frighten it by being too aggressive in her curiosity about the bag. She began by offering the little dog some water and a small bowl of puppy food that she kept in the clinic for emergencies. The puppy drank eagerly but barely touched the food. Its attention kept returning to the canvas bag, and Sarah noticed that the little animal seemed to be trying to communicate something to her. It would look at her, then at the bag, then back at her again, as if urging her to pay attention to what it had brought. "You really want me to look inside, don't you?" Sarah said gently, and the puppy's tail wagged more enthusiastically. Maria had been observing from the doorway, and she stepped forward with a concerned expression. "Dr. Mitchell, don't you think we should call animal control? This puppy might be lost, and someone could be looking for it." Sarah nodded, knowing that Maria was right, but something about the situation felt different. "Let's examine what's in the bag first," she said. "I have a feeling this isn't just a case of a lost puppy." She approached the canvas bag carefully, watching the puppy's reaction. The little dog remained calm but alert, its eyes following Sarah's every movement. When she reached for the drawstring, the puppy actually moved closer, as if encouraging her to proceed. The bag was heavier than Sarah had expected, and as she loosened the drawstring, she could hear soft rustling sounds from inside. Her heart began to race as she realized that whatever was in the bag was alive. She opened the top carefully, preparing herself for anything from injured wildlife to abandoned kittens. What she found inside made her gasp and step back in shock. Nestled in a bed of soft blankets and towels were 4 newborn puppies, so tiny that their eyes hadn't even opened yet. They couldn't have been more than a few days old, and they were making the soft mewing sounds that Sarah had heard from inside the bag. The little golden retriever had somehow managed to carry its siblings to safety. "Oh my goodness," Maria whispered, peering over Sarah's shoulder. "How did that little puppy manage to carry all of them?" Sarah was amazed by what she was seeing. The newborns were clean and appeared to be healthy, though they were obviously hungry and in need of warmth. Someone had taken great care to prepare this makeshift nest, complete with blankets and even a small stuffed animal for comfort. The older puppy, who Sarah was beginning to think of as the little hero, moved to the edge of the bag and began gently nuzzling its smaller siblings. It was clear that this dog had appointed itself as the protector of the litter, and Sarah felt her heart swell with admiration for the tiny animal's courage and determination. But questions were racing through her mind. Who had put these puppies in this bag? Why had they been left outside in the rain? And how had such a young puppy managed to understand that it needed to bring its siblings to a place where they could get help? Sarah carefully lifted one of the newborns, examining it with the practiced hands of an experienced veterinarian. The puppy was underweight but breathing normally, and its heartbeat was strong. The other 3 appeared to be in similar condition. They were hungry and cold, but they had been cared for recently. "Maria, can you prepare some puppy formula and get the heating lamp from room 3? Sarah asked, her professional instincts taking over. "These little ones need warmth and food immediately." As Maria hurried to gather the necessary supplies, Sarah continued her examination of the newborns. She noticed that each puppy had a small collar around its neck, made from what appeared to be strips of soft fabric. On each collar was a tiny handwritten tag with a name: hope, faith, love, and joy. The older puppy, the one who had brought them all to safety, was wearing a similar collar, but its tag was different. Instead of a name, it simply said, "Please help us," in the same careful handwriting. Sarah felt tears welling up in her eyes as the full significance of the situation began to dawn on her. Someone had been caring for these puppies, someone who had taken the time to name them and make them comfortable, but for some reason, that person had been unable to continue caring for them and had entrusted their safety to the bravest little puppy Sarah had ever encountered. The mystery was deepening, and Sarah knew that finding answers was going to be just as important as caring for these precious babies. While Maria prepared the formula and warming equipment, Sarah continued to study the mysterious collars and tags. The handwriting was shaky but careful, as if written by someone who was either very young or perhaps elderly and struggling with arthritis. The fabric used for the collars appeared to be torn from a larger piece of cloth, possibly a shirt or dress. The brave little puppy, who Sarah had decided to call Guardian until she learned its real name, had not left its siblings' side. It seemed to understand that they were now safe and was finally allowing itself to relax. The puppy's breathing had become more regular, and it had even managed to eat a few bites of the food Sarah had offered earlier. As Sarah gently fed formula to the newborns using tiny bottles, she noticed something else unusual about the canvas bag. There was a small pocket on the inside that she hadn't seen before. Her curiosity getting the better of her, she carefully reached inside and felt what seemed to be a folded piece of paper. The note was written on the same type of paper as the tags, in the same shaky handwriting. Sarah unfolded it carefully, her hands trembling slightly as she read the words that would change everything she thought she knew about this situation. To whoever finds these babies, the note began. My name is Emma and I am 8 years old. These are my dog Honey's puppies. Honey got very sick after the babies were born and went to heaven yesterday. My mama is sick too and can't take care of the puppies. She doesn't know I'm writing this because she's sleeping a lot now. Sarah's heart sank as she continued reading. I heard Mama talking to someone on the phone about taking the puppies away tomorrow. She was crying and said she was sorry, but we don't have money for dog food anymore. I don't want them to go to a bad place, so I decided to help them find a good home. The note went on to explain how Emma had prepared the bag with blankets and had somehow trained Guardian, whose real name was Sunny, to drag the bag to the animal clinic. Sunny is the smartest puppy, Emma had written. I showed him the way to your building 3 times and he remembered. I told him he had to be very brave and take care of his brothers and sisters. Maria had returned with the warming equipment and stopped short when she saw the expression on Sarah's face. Dr. Mitchell, what is it? You look like you've seen a ghost. Sarah handed her the note, watching as Maria's own expression changed from curiosity to heartbreak as she read Emma's words. Both women looked at Sunny, who was curled protectively around his siblings under the warming lamp, and felt a new level of respect for what this little dog had accomplished. This is incredible, Maria whispered. An 8-year-old child trained this puppy to bring his litter to safety. But Sarah, we need to find this little girl. If her mother is as sick as she says, they might both need help. Sarah was already reaching for her phone. You're absolutely right. But we need to be careful about how we handle this. If the mother doesn't know what Emma did, she might be panicked thinking the puppies are lost or stolen. The note had included Emma's address, written in the same careful handwriting. It was only about 6 blocks from the clinic, in a part of town that Sarah knew had been struggling economically. Many of the houses there belonged to single mothers and elderly residents who were having difficulty making ends meet. Sarah made several phone calls, starting with the local police to report the situation. The officer who took her call was sympathetic and promised to send someone to check on Emma and her mother immediately. Sarah also called social services, explaining that there might be a family in need of assistance. While they waited for authorities to respond, Sarah and Maria continued caring for the puppies. The newborns were responding well to the formula and warming treatment, and their tiny bodies were already looking healthier and more robust. Sunny had finally allowed himself to fall asleep, his small head resting protectively across his siblings. I can't stop thinking about that little girl, Maria said as she gently cleaned one of the newborns. Can you imagine being 8 years old and feeling like you're the only one who can save these babies? The responsibility she must have felt. Sarah nodded, equally moved by Emma's actions. And training Sunny to do this. It shows incredible intelligence and determination. Most adults wouldn't have been able to come up with such a plan, let alone execute it successfully. About an hour later, Sarah's phone rang. It was Officer Johnson who had gone to check on Emma and her mother. His news was both heartbreaking and hopeful. We found them, he said. The mother, Lisa, is indeed very ill. She's been battling cancer and is currently undergoing treatment that makes her extremely weak. She had no idea what Emma had done with the puppies and was actually planning to surrender them to the pound this morning because she simply couldn't care for them anymore. Sarah felt relief wash over her. At least they had found the family and it sounded like help was on the way. What about Emma? How is she handling all of this? That's one remarkable little girl, Officer Johnson replied. When we explained that Sunny had successfully brought the puppies to your clinic, she started crying with relief. She kept saying, I knew he could do it. I knew Sunny was smart enough. She's been worried sick that her plan wouldn't work. Officer Johnson continued his update and Sarah could hear genuine admiration in his voice. Emma told us the whole story. She spent 3 days preparing for this plan. She practiced walking Sunny to your clinic, showing him the route and making sure he could recognize the building. She even tested whether he could drag the empty bag before putting his siblings inside. Sarah was amazed by the level of planning an 8-year-old had put into saving these puppies. What's going to happen to Emma and her mother now? She asked, genuinely concerned about the family's welfare. Social services is already involved, Officer Johnson explained. Lisa, the mother, has been trying to handle everything on her own and was too proud to ask for help. She's been missing some of her cancer treatments because she couldn't afford childcare for Emma. The good news is that there are programs available to help families in their situation. While Sarah continued her phone conversation, Maria had made a discovery of her own. She had been examining the canvas bag more carefully and found another small pocket that contained a few family photographs. The pictures showed a smiling woman with brown hair holding a baby golden retriever, and several shots of a little girl with pigtails playing with 5 golden retriever puppies in a small backyard. One photograph particularly caught Maria's attention. It showed Emma sitting on the ground with all 5 puppies around her, and she was holding up a handmade sign that read Sunny's Family. The joy on the little girl's face was unmistakable, and it made the current situation even more heartbreaking. When Sarah finished her phone call, Maria showed her the photographs. "Look at how happy they all were," Maria said softly. "This family has been through so much, and now they're losing their beloved pets on top of everything else." Sarah studied the pictures, noting how healthy and well cared for the puppies looked in the photos. It was clear that despite their financial struggles, Lisa and Emma had been devoted pet owners. The mother dog Honey looked healthy and happy in the pictures, which made her sudden death even more tragic. "I have an idea," Sarah said suddenly, an expression of determination crossing her face. "What if we don't have to separate this family completely?" Maria looked at her curiously. "What do you mean?" "Officer Johnson said that social services is getting involved to help Lisa and Emma. If they can get the support they need, and if Lisa's cancer treatment goes well, they might be able to keep at least one of the puppies, maybe Sunny, since he and Emma clearly have such a special bond." The idea was risky, and Sarah knew it would require careful consideration and planning, but she had seen the intelligence and loyalty that Sunny had displayed, and she couldn't bear the thought of separating him from the little girl who had trained him to save his family. Her phone rang again. This time it was a social worker named Janet, who had been assigned to Emma and Lisa's case. "Dr. Mitchell, I understand you're caring for some puppies that belong to the Johnson family?" "That's right," Sarah confirmed. "How are Emma and her mother doing?" "Lisa is being admitted to the hospital for better care and treatment," Janet explained. "She's been trying to manage her illness without proper medical support, and she's severely malnourished and dehydrated. Emma is staying with her grandmother for now, but she's extremely worried about her puppies." Sarah felt her heart break for this brave little girl who had already endured so much. "Is there any way Emma could visit the puppies? I think it would help her to see that they're safe and healthy." "Actually, that's exactly what I was calling about," Janet said. "Emma has been asking about the puppies constantly. Her grandmother was wondering if a visit might be possible, if it wouldn't be too much trouble." "No trouble at all," Sarah said immediately. "In fact, I think it would be therapeutic for everyone involved, including the puppies. Sunny has been restless, and I suspect he's missing Emma as much as she's missing him." They arranged for Emma and her grandmother to visit that afternoon. Sarah spent the morning making sure all the puppies were clean, fed, and comfortable. She also prepared a special area where Emma could sit with Sunny and his siblings safely. When Emma arrived that afternoon, the reunion between her and Sunny was something Sarah would never forget. The moment the little girl walked into the room, Sunny's ears perked up and his tail began wagging furiously. Emma dropped to her knees and Sunny ran to her, covering her face with kisses while she hugged him tight. "I knew you could do it, Sunny," Emma whispered through her tears. "I knew you were brave enough to save everyone." Emma's grandmother, a kind-looking woman named Ruth, watched the reunion with tears in her eyes. "That little girl has been talking about nothing but these puppies," she told Sarah. "She's been so worried that something might have gone wrong with her plan." Sarah watched as Emma gently greeted each of the newborn puppies, speaking to them in the same soft, loving voice she had heard in her mind when she read Emma's note. The little girl clearly had a special connection with animals, and her love for these puppies was evident in every gesture. As Emma sat with the puppies, Sarah had a chance to talk with Ruth about the family's situation. Ruth explained that she had been trying to help Lisa and Emma for months, but her daughter was stubborn and independent, often refusing assistance even when she desperately needed it. "Lisa has always been determined to handle everything on her own," Ruth said with a mixture of pride and frustration. Even when her husband left 2 years ago, she insisted she could manage raising Emma and taking care of their pets without help. But the cancer diagnosis changed everything. Ruth went on to explain that Lisa had been working 2 part-time jobs to make ends meet. But the chemotherapy treatments had made it impossible for her to continue working. She had been too embarrassed to tell her mother how bad things had gotten financially. And she certainly hadn't mentioned that she was planning to give up the puppies. When the police officer told me what Emma had done, I was shocked, Ruth continued. That little girl had been carrying this enormous burden all by herself. She knew her mother was struggling and she was trying to find a way to help without making things worse. Sarah watched Emma as her grandmother spoke. The 8-year-old was sitting cross-legged on the floor with Sunny in her lap, gently bottle-feeding one of the newborns. Her concentration was complete, and it was clear that she had done this before. Despite her young age, Emma was a natural caretaker. Has Emma always been this close to animals? Sarah asked. Ruth smiled for the first time since arriving. Oh yes, ever since she was tiny. She's always been able to connect with animals in a way that amazes adults. When Honey was pregnant, Emma somehow knew exactly when the puppies were going to be born. She stayed up all night with Honey, helping her through the delivery. This information made Emma's recent actions even more remarkable. Not only had she managed to save her puppies, but she had been actively involved in caring for them since birth. No wonder Sunny had been so responsive to her training. Sarah made a decision that she hoped she wouldn't regret. Ruth, I want to discuss something with you and with the social worker. What if there was a way for Emma to keep Sunny? Ruth's eyes widened. Dr. Mitchell, that's very kind of you to consider. But I don't think Lisa would accept charity. She's very proud and she's already heartbroken about giving up the puppies. This wouldn't be charity, Sarah said carefully. I've been thinking about this all morning. Emma clearly has a special gift with animals. What if we could work out an arrangement where she helps at the clinic in exchange for Sunny's care? She could learn about veterinary medicine while helping with basic tasks, and Sunny could stay with her. The idea was unconventional, but Sarah had seen enough of Emma's capabilities to know that the little girl could handle more responsibility than most children her age. And having a purpose, something to work toward, might help Emma cope with her mother's illness. Ruth was quiet for a long moment, considering the proposal. You would really be willing to do that? Even though you barely know us? I know enough, Sarah said firmly. I know that Emma trained a puppy to save his siblings' lives. I know that she put together a plan that most adults couldn't have managed. And I know that separating her from Sunny right now when she's already dealing with so much would be unnecessarily cruel. They were interrupted by Emma's excited voice. Dr. Mitchell, come look. I think Hope is trying to open her eyes. Sarah hurried over to where Emma was sitting. Sure enough, one of the tiny newborns was making attempts to open her eyes several days earlier than would normally be expected. Sarah had seen this phenomenon before in puppies who had experienced early stress or trauma. Sometimes difficult circumstances actually accelerated their development. You're right, Emma, Sarah said, genuinely impressed. You have excellent observation skills. Hope is definitely trying to see the world. Emma beamed with pride at the praise. Sunny told me she was special, she said matter-of-factly. He always pays extra attention to her. Sarah glanced at Ruth, who was watching her granddaughter with obvious love and admiration. It was clear that Emma's bond with these animals was something truly extraordinary. And Sarah felt more confident than ever that she was making the right decision. Emma, Sarah said gently, how would you feel about helping me take care of Sunny and his brothers and sisters until we can find them good homes? Emma's face lit up like Christmas morning. Really, you would let me help? I know how to mix the formula and I can tell when they need to go potty, and I know which blankets they like best. I can see that, Sarah said with a smile. But this would be a big responsibility. You would need to come here after school every day, and you would have to follow all my instructions exactly. Could you handle that? Yes, Emma said without hesitation. I promise I would be the best helper ever. And Sunny would be so happy to help too. He's really smart, and he could learn to do things around the clinic. Ruth was looking at Sarah with an expression of gratitude mixed with disbelief. Dr. Mitchell, are you sure about this? It's an enormous responsibility, and Emma is still just a child. She's a child who saved 5 puppies' lives, Sarah replied. I think she can handle helping me care for them. The arrangement Sarah proposed required approval from several people, including Emma's mother, the social worker, and Emma's grandmother. Over the next few days, Sarah worked tirelessly to make the plan a reality. She met with Janet, the social worker, to discuss how Emma's involvement at the clinic could be structured as an educational program rather than child labor. This is highly unusual, Janet admitted during their meeting. But given Emma's special circumstances and obvious aptitude with animals, I think we can make it work. The key will be ensuring that her schoolwork doesn't suffer, and that she still has time to be a child. Sarah had already thought about these concerns. Emma would only come here for 2 hours after school, 3 days a week. She could do her homework here if needed, and I could even incorporate some learning about biology and animal science into her tasks. It might actually help her academically. The biggest hurdle was convincing Lisa. When Ruth finally told her daughter about the proposed arrangement, Lisa's first reaction was to refuse. She was lying in her hospital bed weak from chemotherapy but still determined to maintain her independence. "I won't accept charity," Lisa said firmly. "We've managed on our own this long and we'll figure something out." But Ruth was persistent. "Lisa, this isn't charity. Dr. Mitchell is offering Emma a genuine opportunity to learn and contribute. And honey, you need to face the fact that Emma has already shown she's capable of more than you've been giving her credit for." It took several conversations, but Lisa finally agreed to meet with Sarah in person. When Sarah arrived at the hospital, she brought something special with her, a photo album she had created documenting the puppies' progress over the past week. The pictures showed Emma working with the puppies, feeding them, cleaning their area, and teaching Sunny basic commands. In every photo, Emma's face was glowing with happiness and purpose, but it was the pictures of Sunny that finally convinced Lisa. "Look how much he's grown already," Sarah said, showing Lisa a photo of Sunny standing alert and healthy. "And look at this one, where he's helping Emma feed his little brother. That dog would do anything for your daughter, and she would do anything for him. Separating them now would be heartbreaking for both of them." Lisa studied the photos with tears in her eyes. "She looks so happy," she whispered. "I haven't seen her smile like that since before I got sick." "Emma has found her calling," Sarah said gently. "She has a natural gift for working with animals, and this experience could shape her entire future in the most positive way. But more than that, she needs something stable and positive to focus on while you're getting better." Finally, Lisa nodded. "Okay," she said quietly. "If you're sure it won't be too much trouble, and if Emma really wants to do this, then I'll agree to try it." The first official day of Emma's apprenticeship at the Valley Animal Clinic was a success beyond Sarah's wildest dreams. Emma arrived right after school, still in her backpack with her homework carefully organized in a folder. She had prepared a list of questions about puppy care and had even researched some veterinary terms in the library. Sunny greeted Emma like she had been gone for years instead of hours, and the newborn puppies seemed to calm down immediately when they heard her voice. Emma set to work with a seriousness and dedication that impressed everyone at the clinic. "Dr. Mitchell," Emma said as she carefully measured puppy formula, "I was thinking that maybe we should weigh the puppies every day at the same time, so we can make sure they're all growing at the right speed. I made a chart where we could write down their weights." Sarah looked at the handmade chart Emma had created. It was color-coded, with a different color for each puppy, and included spaces for recording weight, feeding times, and behavioral observations. It was more organized than some of the systems Sarah had seen trained veterinary assistants use. "This is excellent work, Emma," Sarah said, genuinely impressed. "You're absolutely right about tracking their progress. Would you like to be in charge of maintaining this chart?" Emma's face lit up with pride. "Really? You trust me to do something that important?" "I trust you completely," Sarah said, and she meant it. Over the past week, she had watched Emma demonstrate maturity, intelligence, and compassion that exceeded what she would expect from many adults. As the days turned into weeks, Emma's role at the clinic expanded naturally. She learned to assist with basic examinations, to recognize signs of illness or distress in the puppies, and to communicate effectively with pet owners who came to visit. Her natural empathy made her particularly good at working with scared or anxious animals. Sunny, meanwhile, was thriving under Emma's care. The puppy had grown rapidly and was showing signs of exceptional intelligence. Sarah began training him to assist with simple tasks around the clinic, and he proved to be a remarkably quick learner. "I think Sunny could become a therapy dog," Sarah told Emma one afternoon as they watched the puppy gently comfort a nervous cat who was waiting for treatment. "He has such a calm, intuitive personality. He seems to know exactly what other animals need." Emma's eyes shone with excitement. Could he really do that? Could he help other sick animals feel better? "With the right training, absolutely," Sarah confirmed. "And I think you could help train him. You already understand him better than anyone else." The best news came a month after Emma started working at the clinic. Lisa's latest round of chemotherapy had been successful, and her doctors were optimistic about her prognosis. She was still weak, but she was responding well to treatment and would soon be able to come home. "Mom's getting better," Emma announced excitedly when she arrived at the clinic that day. "She says she can't wait to meet all of Sonny's brothers and sisters, and she wants to see where I work every day." 6 months later, the Valley Animal Clinic looked very different than it had on that rainy October morning when Sonny first dragged his precious cargo through the door. The waiting room now featured a large bulletin board covered with photos and updates about the 5 golden retriever puppies who had become local celebrities. Hope, Faith, Love, and Joy had all been adopted by carefully selected families, but they remained part of the clinic's extended family. Their new owners brought them in for regular checkups and play dates, and Emma had maintained detailed records of each puppy's development and personality. She had even created a newsletter that she sent to all the adoptive families, sharing stories and photos of the siblings' progress. Emma herself had grown and changed remarkably during those months. She had developed confidence in her abilities and had discovered a passion for veterinary medicine that Sarah was convinced would shape her entire future. The 8-year-old was now 9 and had become an invaluable assistant at the clinic, capable of handling responsibilities that amazed everyone who met her. "Dr. Mitchell," Emma said one afternoon as she carefully updated Sonny's training log, "I've been thinking about something. Do you think Sonny remembers that day when he saved everyone?" Sarah looked up from the patient file she was reviewing. Sonny was lying next to Emma's chair, wearing the red therapy dog vest he had earned after months of specialized training. He had indeed become a certified therapy animal and was now helping comfort anxious pets and their owners throughout the community. "I think he remembers," Sarah said thoughtfully. "But more importantly, I think he understands that what he did was special, and I think he's proud of the role he plays here now." Sonny's transformation had been remarkable to watch. The tiny, determined puppy who had struggled through the rain had grown into a confident, gentle dog who seemed to instinctively understand when someone needed comfort. He had a special gift for calming nervous animals, and had even helped several rescue dogs overcome trauma and fear. Lisa's recovery had progressed better than anyone had dared to hope. She was now in remission and had returned to work part-time at a local bookstore. The financial assistance programs that social services had connected her with had helped stabilize the family's situation, and for the first time in years, Lisa felt hopeful about the future. "I can't believe how much Emma has grown," Lisa told Sarah during one of her visits to the clinic. 6 months ago, she was carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders, trying to solve problems that no child should have to face. Now she's found her purpose, and she's thriving in ways I never could have imagined. The story of Sonny and Emma had spread throughout the community, inspiring others to support the clinic's work with rescue animals. Donations had poured in, allowing Sarah to expand her programs for helping families in crisis keep their beloved pets. She had even started a scholarship fund for young people interested in pursuing veterinary medicine, with Emma as the inspiration. The Emma Johnson Scholarship for Young Animal Advocates, Sarah had named it, much to Emma's embarrassment and delight. Local news stations had covered the story, and a children's book author had even approached Emma about writing a book based on Sonny's heroic journey. But through all the attention and praise, Emma remained focused on what mattered most to her: the animals in her care and the bond she shared with Sonny. "People keep calling Sonny a hero," Emma said one day as she brushed his golden coat until it shone. "But I think we were all heroes that day. Sonny was brave enough to make the journey. His brothers and sisters were strong enough to survive, and I was smart enough to come up with the plan. Sometimes being a hero just means doing what needs to be done, even when you're scared." Sarah smiled at Emma's wisdom. The little girl had learned lessons about courage, responsibility, and compassion that would serve her well throughout her life. But perhaps more importantly, she had learned that even in the darkest moments, there was always hope if you were willing to fight for it. As the sun set on another busy day at the Valley Animal Clinic, Sarah watched Emma and Sonny working together to prepare the overnight areas for the animals staying at the clinic. They moved with the synchronized efficiency of a team that had been working together for years, each anticipating the other's needs and movements. Sonny paused in his work to nuzzle Emma's hand, and she scratched behind his ears in the exact spot she knew he loved best. It was a simple gesture, but it represented so much more than a girl and her dog. It represented the power of love, determination, and the unbreakable bonds that form when souls recognize each other across species. The tiny puppy who had dragged a bag through the rain had not only saved his siblings' lives, but had also saved a little girl who desperately needed something to believe in. And in return, that little girl had given him a purpose that went far beyond anything either of them could have imagined on that stormy October morning. Sometimes the most extraordinary stories begin with the smallest acts of courage, and sometimes the greatest heroes come in the most unexpected packages. In Sunny's case, heroism had come wrapped in golden fur and powered by a heart big enough to carry the hopes of an entire family to safety. The Valley Animal Clinic closed its doors that evening to the sound of Emma's laughter as Sunny performed the newest trick she had taught him. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new animals to help, and new opportunities to make a difference. But tonight, as Emma hugged Sunny goodbye and promised to see him first thing in the morning, both of them knew that they had found their place in the world. The little puppy who had once struggled through the rain dragging a bag full of hopes and dreams had grown into exactly what he was always meant to be: a beacon of hope for others, guided by the love of a remarkable little girl who had seen his potential from the very beginning.